Hey there, everyone. Welcome to Back to the Basics. I'm Preston Savelle, and as always, it is such an honor to be able to share with you today. And you know, what I want to share is something that, as I was reading my Bible, it's something that stuck out to me, a verse that, you have sometimes when you read the Bible and different verses speak to you or strike you. And sometimes that's a good feeling, sometimes that's a convicting feeling, sometimes it's all those emotions in between. But I wanted to share one that stuck to me today. And it's found in Revelation chapter 2. Now, to set the basis for this, of course, this is when John, he gets a visitation from Jesus, and he gets a word for each of the churches that exist during this time. And this is a word, the first one we're getting into is a word to the church of Ephesus. And it says this, starting in verse 1, "Write this to Ephesus, to the angel of the church, the one with the 7 stars in his right fist grip, striding through the golden 7 light circle speaks." This is Revelation 2, the message, I should say, the translation. And it says this, "I see what you have done, your hard work, your refusal to quit. I know you can't stomach evil, that you weed out apostolic pretenders. I know your persistence, your courage in my cause, that you never wear out." Okay, so Ephesus is doing something right. They set the stage of doing something good. But listen to what he says in the next verse. "But you walked away from your first love." Why? What's going on with you anyway? Do you have any idea how far you've fallen? Listen to this. A Lucifer fall. Turn back. Recover your early love. No time to waste, for I am well on my way to removing your light from the golden circle. So it's interesting. They set this precedent of Ephesus has done a lot of things right, but they've forgotten something. They've forgotten something core, important, integral to having a relationship with God, the point of having this church in the first place anyways. And when I read that, of course, it strikes me because I think of, man, are there people who are doing so many things right and yet missing the mark, missing the point of why we call ourselves Christians? And I was brought into another verse, which is found in Matthew 7, 21 through 23. And this is a picture of this. And it says, "Not everyone who says to me, 'Lord, Lord,' will enter the kingdom of heaven, but only the one who does the will of my Father who is in heaven." This is Jesus talking, and he says, "Many will say to me on that day, 'Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name? And in your name drive out demons? And in your name perform many miracles?'" And listen to this, verse 23. "Then I will tell them plainly, 'I never knew you. Away from me, you evildoers.'" Whoa. Can you imagine those people who will be saying those things to Jesus, to think they've lived a lifetime of doing what they say here, casting out demons in your name, prophesying in your name, performing great miracles in your name, and to come to the end of their lives and to come and meet Jesus face to face, and he tells them, "Away from me, I never knew you." That's a real thing to think about. I think that's a very real thing we have to think about. And it comes back to this. What is our purpose as believers? When we call ourselves Christians, what does that mean? Why are we Christians? Why do we say that we're Christians? Why do we believe these things and choose to believe the Bible and to stand on the Word and live our lives in this way? What separates us from the world? And at the end of the day, I believe it's this. John 17:3 in the Amplified says this, "And this is eternal life." This is what eternal life means. This is what its purpose is. It means to know, to perceive, recognize, become acquainted with, and understand you, the only true and real God. And to know him, Jesus, as the Christ, the anointed one, the Messiah, whom you have sent. So our purpose as believers is to know and have an intimate relationship with God. That's the primary thing. That's the reason we do what we do. This is why we call ourselves Christians, because we are following Christ. We are having a relationship. And I want to stress to you, that's our primary purpose, to know God. Everything else is a byproduct of that primary purpose, which is knowing God. And the truth is, I don't, any other reality separate from doing those things is a reality I don't want to live in. And what's interesting to me is that even people in the Old Testament, people who chose to know God, had a different kind of a relationship. Despite all the, especially the traditions and the religious processes they had to go through in the Old Testament, there are people who stand out as having a different relationship with God. And I want to point to two of those here. And both of them are found in the verses I want to mention are found in Psalms. And the first one I want to point to is Psalms 103, verse 7, in the New King James Version. And it says this, listen to this distinction. He, this is God, made known his ways to Moses and his acts to the children of Israel. Right there is a clear distinction. The children of Israel knew one aspect of God. They knew the final product. They saw the great miracles he did. And you would think, man, these great miracles, how could you see these things and not be impressed by what God has done? But the truth is, that's the shallower end of it. That's you saw the result of what God was doing. But listen, but Moses, he knew his ways. He knew who God was. He knew God's character. And that is such a more precious place to be, to know God. Not just to see what God does or to see his great acts or maybe like, man, that was an awesome thing God did, but to know God, to be a part of the process from the beginning. People can always see the end result of it, but to be a part of it from the inception, to have a relationship with God, that's the real, y'all. That's the important thing. And another person that sticks out to me is, and I want you to read, people always talk about David. And the thing that sticks out to me about David is a man after God's own heart. And I think this verse I want to read is the epitome of that. And it says that in Psalm 63:1. Listen to the way David speaks to God. You, God, are my God. Earnestly I seek you. I thirst for you. My whole being longs for you in a dry and parched land where there is no water. No wonder this man is a man after God's own heart, because he so desperately wanted a touch from God, so desperately wanted to know God. You know, I spend time with my grandmother a lot, and we watch a variety of different shows and things that she enjoys. And one of the shows she likes a lot is Little House on the Prairie, which I have seen a number of episodes. And you know, it's I think it's a show that went on for like 12 seasons, and you could see why, because great characters. It's a setting that you feel comfortable with, but at the same time, the challenges they have to deal with, I enjoy it. I enjoy watching the show with her. But there was one episode where they focused on a different character, separate from the main family. And it was the Olsen family, I believe. And it was the individual who ran the more well-off family. They had a general store, they had a restaurant, they had all these things. And the wife of the family is kind of known as like a shrew. She's really intense. She's kind of, people don't like her. She's very gossipy. Like, people don't like this woman. She's kind of has a reputation. And then vice versa, her husband is very, very meek, very kind, he's easygoing. People like him. But it's funny, in this episode I watched with my grandmother, this character, this meek husband, is kind of pushed to the limits with his family. And he's the one who makes all the meals. He does all the things for his family. And yet his wives and his children are pushing him to the point where he can't even stand it anymore. He can't do anything right. And he decides he wants to take his business on the road and give a little space to his family. So he goes on the road and he takes this general store on the road. And over time, he starts having a distance from his family, and he starts enjoying being alone. And then all of a sudden he comes to this town, and he stops at a bed and breakfast, and he meets this beautiful younger woman who runs this bed and breakfast. And hey, she talks to him nice. She treats him kindly. She respects him. Hey, she's going to make the meal for him. He doesn't have to make the meal for himself or have to make the meal for everybody else. And he's thinking, hey, this starts to feel pretty good. And so then he goes back home, and he's almost dragging his feet to come back home. And his wife is wondering how long he's going to be gone again. And he can't wait to get back on the road to see this girl again. And our buddy Nels Olson, he's entering a precarious situation. And there's a moment where eventually he snaps to his senses, and he realizes that this is not a road I want to go down. And he tells this woman, you have your life ahead of her. She's younger than him. And he's like, and I have a family. I have a wife. And he lied about that before to this woman, but he has a wife and children. I need to go back home to them. And, it was funny because meanwhile, his wife, she decides she wants to put her best dress on. She wants to make him a meatloaf or a roast for a change of pace. And he gets home, and he's feeling guilty about some of the path he almost went down. He stopped himself, and she tried to make him this roast. And of course, she's not the cook of the family, so this thing is dried out. It is terrible, and she can't even cut into the meat. And he just sits there, and he just starts laughing. And they start laughing together, and he looks at his wife, and you could see it's almost like he's going back to seeing her as the woman he married, the woman he fell in love with. And he goes, hey, let's forget the meal. Let's just go on a walk. Let's go enjoy a nice stroll in the evening together. And that's how the episode ends. And it was it was a precious way to end. I loved it. I enjoyed it, the way the episode ended so much. And it made me think back not only to my own marriage, my own wife, but also to my relationship with God. And it's so interesting how, especially if you've been in a relationship or you're married, you can remember those first experiences with that person. And I can go back to my own, and how when I started dating my wife, Christian, I was so excited. I remember I couldn't wait till my lunch break so I could call her, and I couldn't wait till I got home so I could call her again. And the amount of time that I spent talking to this woman at the beginning of this dating relationship, you could tell this was a priority to me. This person was my focus. I couldn't get enough. I wanted to have more time with this person. And it's so easy because not only in our relationships, but especially in our relationship with God, why does that change? When does that change? When does the person that you love start to become normal, a regular part of your life, an afterthought, something that can be easily taken for granted? I'm sure plenty of marriages have ended, maybe not immediately, but over a period of time. Why? Because the focus, the fire, the passion, the intensity of that love, that focusing point of where I love this person, I want to be with them, that reality dulls for a lot of people. And it's a very easy reality to enter if you're not focused, if you're not actively and tangibly stepping into the reality of that you want to be in a relationship with this person. And that, when it comes to marriages, that means sometimes you got to do things different. Sometimes you don't just come home after work. That means, hey, maybe you and you ain't got no kids. Let's go on a date. Why not? Spontaneous date. And the truth is that stokes the passion, the fire of why you got married in the first place. Why this person isn't a roommate. They're not a friend. They're not some person. They are the person that you married, and you love them, and you want to spend time with them, and you want them to feel valued. And how much more do we need to do the same thing for God? I want to ask you today, and let's just be honest. I want to be honest too. It's very easy to take for granted the relationship we have with God. And you could read all these amazing verses that we've read, the verses I've read here and verses we've read in the past. And you could take all those things. Oh yeah, You know, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. I've shared that verse before because it's a verse that I live by, but it's so easy to take those things as face value and just accept them. But I encourage you today, I implore you, get back to your first love, which is God. And it's through Jesus where we have access to God. And I want to tell you that no matter how much time has gone on, that relationship has not diluted 1% from God. When God sees you, he sees you as his son and as his daughter. And if you checked his percentage meter or how much he loves you right now, from 1 to 100, it's 100%. It's 110%. It's the maximum amount because that's how much he loves us. He loves us passionately. He loves us hard. He really does love us. And so if your relationship with God, I want you to think about this right now. If things feel stale, if things feel dry, if you feel like you're stuck somewhere or complacency, I want you to just think about it and think if you have lost sight of your first love, if you've lost sight of what it means to be a Christian, if you've lost sight of how good of a God we serve. And I guarantee you, if you take the time to actually seek God and you have that desperation like David talked about, you will have a reinvigorated relationship with your Father. And it's not because he's diluted, it's because your focus, your priority has shifted to the reason why we're here. The purpose of us being on this earth is to know him and to do his will. But to do his will, you have to know his will. And to know his will, it means you have to know him. So I would encourage you today, get back to your first love. Get back to what it means to be a Christian. Get back to knowing God for who he really is, a loving Father who cares for you very much. It makes me think about my own relationship with God, and I hope it encourages you to know that God is on your side and he loves you very much. And it's a joy for me to be able to share that to you today. So I would encourage you, go back, seek God, go back to your first love. And I just want to tell you, I love you very much. Thank you for tuning in to Back to the Basics, and know this, that your faith will overcome the world.